Hey, everybody. It's me, Tom, cannabis industry lawyer. For some reason, I got a mullet, but this too shall pass. We're going to talk a little bit about something that you're going to do in your cannabis business venture, unless you're extremely wealthy. And most people do not have the ability to write a check in seven figures. The vast majority of the people watching this can't just cut a check right now for over $1 million, and therefore you're going to need to calculate your gap. Joining me, of course, is Miggy, and we're going to talk a little bit about, well, what does it mean to calculate your gap in business, especially in startup business. And so when you start a business, your partners forms a group. They very often call it colloquially in business. And then that group throws in, and by throws, I mean, again, business is a whole bunch of, it's just like that. And those, it's hilarious. But by throws in, they all contribute money into a pot, and that money is then put to work. As you see, it's one of those. I like to put money to work. What you will hear from entrepreneurs very often. And by that money goes in, and it's usually a down payment on a construction project, or it's operating capital to burn until you earn. Again, these silly sayings happen a lot in business. And so burning until you're earning is what Cresco or Amazon were doing. And they were just continuing to acquire additional people on their cap table and their shareholders. And as they would calculate, well, how much more money do we need? How do we fill that? Now, with a cannabis store, we're going to use a simple version of just a $1.5 million dispensary. So that $1.5 million dispensary, you may be able to find construction loans and other mortgage loans for, but you have to put down more money in this industry because it is illegal. And so you may be able to find 30% if you're lucky, 30% and hopefully single digit interest rate if you're really lucky, and have good credit and a good group. But that means that if you're going to build a $1.5 million dispensary and try to open that business, you need about a third of that. So you need about $500,000 in cash. Now, one guy can do that.
Yeah.
Or three guys can do that. And that's one of the nicer things about the industry. You can sometimes do it less and try to let's calculate it, say that, all right, that's our gap. Well, can we try to get that lower? What do you mean? What if we rent the place? But if you're going to rent the place and it's a dispensary, you have to be real careful because of the IRC 280E. And then if you're going to rent the place and it's going to be cultivation, less. But then you have to look out for landlords that might want a piece. And so we'll talk about that aspect in a different How to Cannabis. And if you're enjoying these segments, check out our playlist, How to Cannabis, where we go over various operational and business issues in the cannabis industry. When you hear people talk about calculating their gap, they're trying to figure out how much more money they need to either access credit or to continue to do operations.
Okay.
Yep. And so when you put together your business plan, you need you do your financial models and your pro forma. So your startup costs and capital that you're deploying and putting to work by having new facilities and equipment. And then you get a number. And then that number is how much cash you actually need to fill that gap to get open for business.
So the gap is something you're figuring out after the fact already, right? Like
when you're putting your plan together. And so when you're putting your plan together, you're saying, we're going to do this. It's going to be that piece of real estate. We're going to build this thing. And then because you're saying all those things, how much it's going to cost. And then you can figure out from the lender who's going to give you a loan to value of 70%. Hopefully you have a license in hand.
Let's use an example that I'm familiar with that I turned you on to. Let's say this license for $300,000, right? Like that's just a license and a facility, and that's it. And that's the producer processor. So it's like a grow somewhere. Then, so I have $300,000, or I raise it, but then there's going to be on top money, right? To maintain it and float it so you get the business going forward, right? So would I then, in my business plan, say, okay, say I can only raise, realistically, with people I know, 100,000 out of the 300 required. Then with that 100,000 I raise, am I walking around trying to raise, say, another 500 on top of that? Because, that's the whole gap that I'm needing, that I'm looking at.
Yeah, you're usually trying to get the sufficient cash to pay your overhead for your operating at a
Yeah.
skeletal basis until you can get open for business. And then also for your complete costs of your construction build out until you can get your certificate of operation from the regulatory authority. And as a result, that costs money. And then you figure out how much that is. It's more expensive now because building materials have gone up in price.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks. But, it'll go back down when the recession hits. But one thing the recession really won't hit is the cannabis business. The only thing that we really need is it to no longer be treated like, for it to be regulated how it is, not how some people believe it to be.
Right. Well, that's just, each state's going to be different, right? No matter what plan you come up with, it's going to be individualized until it is federally legal, right?
Yep. That's exactly how it's going to go, man. Anyway, so that is our little mini How to Cannabis segment, and that kind of wraps up the rest of the podcast for the week. Hey, if you guys think we've been doing too many clip shows and we need to port over another channel to do the clip shows, let us know. And then Cannabis Legalization News would just have those 2 videos a week, or maybe also this How to Cannabis segment, so that people can get that and find out how to get in the industry. But let us know in the comments. We really appreciate all the members, especially the guy that joined during this one. And yeah, man.
Ooh, may the 4th be with you.
Oh my goodness, that is the first May the 4th reference we've made. You're welcome, everybody, and we'll see you later.
All right. Brown chicken, brown cow.